You look at these photos posted on various news sites and social media accounts, what do you see? A bunch of people, cute watermelon umbrellas, nice tropical backdrop, going for a walk. But no, this is Singapore, and this bunch of people are breaking the law. Those watermelons, the colors of the Palestinian flag, meant to show solidarity. The tropical backdrop, the official palace of the president and prime minister, and this walk, what authorities there call a real risk to public order.
Singapore police say that others involved in the same events are also being investigated.
But the organizers, after a more than year-long legal battle, they've just managed to avoid punishment for their protest march, and in a country, mind you, where even just spitting out your gum on the street can result in a $1,000 fine. How'd they do it? Singapore is one of those countries that defies neat political labels.
It is a democracy, but there are critics who say, there are limitations on freedoms in Singapore, which the government has often justified as saying, it's necessary to maintain peace and stability and harmony.
It is very much a country that is committed to the rule of law, but it is also a country that has a political party that controls pretty much everything and does not like to see itself criticized.
Yeah, it's not a dictatorship, but it is highly regulated and maybe structurally quite stiff. I'll give you an example. For the last 60 years, the same political party has won every single election by wide margins, basically for as long as Singapore has been a country. Its media environment is tightly managed. Free speech, especially political speech, has very clear limits. And public protests of any kind at all require approval. And when I say of any kind at all, I mean that. A few years ago, an activist was fined $3,000 and charged with unlawful assembly for holding up a piece of cardboard with a smiley face on it and having his picture taken outside a police station. Singapore's Public Order Act makes clear that by default, a public assembly and a public procession must not take place unless the government is notified and a permit is issued. And a little further down, there's near complete discretion for the government to make any protest location or protest itself illegal. And there's even a special carve-out for protests related to Israel's war against Hamas in Gaza, with police telling citizens explicitly applications to hold such events will be turned down.
Public demonstrations, public assemblies, these are quite rare in Singapore.
Protests are very rare. It's very difficult. People can be arrested and prosecuted for violating this act.
So, in the case of Singapore's watermelon procession of 2024 in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza, the organizers argued their procession was no procession at all. That didn't work, but there was another loophole. The judge in this case actually said he was disappointed that the defense would have the nerve to argue. These citizens weren't protesting, Your Honor. They were simply delivering letters addressed to the Prime Minister, imploring him to defend the interests of Palestinians. Because, the judge would later say, who do you think you're kidding? You're 70 people carrying watermelon umbrellas around the palatial office of the Prime Minister, and you're telling me this isn't a protest. So, there was no question, this was a procession as defined by the Public Order Act. But the charges against the organizers required two components to hold up: the act and the intent. So the key question in this case boils down to whether the organizers could reasonably have known protests were illegal in this specific place. Because you remember how it is within the power of the government to make certain protest locations illegal. Well, the public pathway around the Prime Minister's office is one such area. This whole region is, according to Singaporean law, prohibited, but it's still a public pathway for walking. People walk on it all the time. And as you can see from these street view images, and as the judge noted, there are no signs that would lead anyone to believe that this is considered a no-protest zone. So, could the protest organizers have known their protest was specifically illegal here? The judge said no. And on that key point, the three organizers were acquitted. Now, the story doesn't quite end there because there's still a cultural question and a legal question. The cultural question is, does this open the door for more protests? The organizers certainly hope it does. They've said they feel emboldened, and their posts on Instagram after this legal win suggest as much. But protest culture in Singapore broadly is still very constrained, and I didn't have to look very far to find blowback against the organizers themselves, one of whom is a fashion influencer, along with accusations that this was really just a trendy, poorly thought out grab for attention. Because Singaporeans do take their neutrality seriously. I've been there, and I would say, on balance, they're much more pragmatic than ideological, certainly in a national sense, preferring to avoid situations where they're forced to choose a side. So we'll see what happens on that front. But legally, the next step, the appeal. The prosecution has already promised to relitigate this case. And ultimately, if the three women charged lose, they could face up to $10,000 in fines each, or up to 6 months behind bars, or both.